politics can promote real social change. I mean, you can look at kind of how music was used in the 60s in relationship to the 60s movements, the Black Power movement and James Brown, or the kind of the anti-war movement, all the music that was behind that. I think music can play a large role in that, but it depends, I guess. Yeah, because I mean, I'm trying to see the emergence of a movement here in East LA based upon Chicano or Chicano-centric forms of music, and hoping that some movement can develop and folks can get together, build solidarities and bridges to other movements and make connections and build a larger kind of anti-capital.
Because a lot of the movements are fractionalized.
Yes, yes. I mean, there's all these different movements all over the place. And like, how do you bridge them? How do you make that gap? How do you reach out to your brothers and sisters who are also struggling because they're poor or what have you? And how do you make that connection so that you can develop a larger base?
How would you say you get your students involved or get them active?
Okay, right on. So, as part of, I use teaching as a form of critical pedagogy. So, what I also do is to try to get the students into, because I really follow a kind of a Chicano studies doctrine where you try to get the campus involved with the community and the community involved with the campus. So I try to, what I do to do that is I offer extra credit for my students to go out into the community and to participate in a rally or a protest or see a guest speaker or to go to a politically charged show. So they go, they participate, and then they write about it, and they connect it to what we're learning in class. So, because what I try to do is I try to get them to link what they're learning in class to what's actually happening in their lives, so that what they're learning actually means something. So they go out, they participate in this event, they come back, and they write about what they did, what they saw, what they learned, and how it relates to what we're talking about. So they go to anything from immigrant rights marches to guest speakers on campus or guest speakers in the community to Dia de los Muertos, let's say like self-help graphics, or whatever I find that's happening in the community. To go see Outside Underground, who are playing with tonight, or Gorilla Queens, or one of the bands that play often in LA or the East LA area that promotes kind of a consciousness, indigenous consciousness, racialized or ethnic-based consciousness, just so that students can start doing something instead of just sitting on their butts, just actually out and doing something with the knowledge that they're learning.
Why do you think it is that oppressive governments try to stifle the arts and stifle writers?
Right on. That's a great question. Well, I mean, I think that governments are afraid of art. I think governments are afraid of movements because with art you can reach. I mean, you can put a poster up right here that says something like "Down with the government," and people could walk by this poster, and who knows how many people walk by this street and they could see this and get the message, and if they're interested they can kind of go to the website and review more or what have you. So I mean, I think governments really try to stifle and to oppress and censor because they realize how important music is to culture and movement and building, that they don't want people to participate in any type of music that's generated or that's anti-government or that's pro indigenous rights or that's, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So governments will do what they can to stifle it just so that this message is gone, cut out, censored, non-important, oblivious, just historically made mute. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because having a voice is an important part of just being human and being able to dialogue with folks. And if you don't have that voice, if you don't have that ability to talk to other people, right? If you don't have the ability to link with other folks, to create bridges, to connect struggles, then you really don't have much. And I think music is definitely a way to do that, and politicians and governments know. They know that, and some of the most oppressive regimes have had the most vibrant musical cultures of resistance. I mean, you can look at kind of the music that came out against apartheid in South Africa, and just the number of different styles of music that have developed and generated to challenge oppressive forms of music. I mean, we can go down to Latin America and look at Victor Jara or Violeta Parra and the Nuevo Canción movement, and how it was just these two people playing guitars going across all of Latin America, talking about how oppressive, how messed up, how exploitation works for all people throughout Latin America. And the governments realized, well, these people are doing that, so they got these folks and they held Victor in prison for a number of years, and then they assassinated him in public to try to get folks to not do what he was doing.
Okay.
Right? So governments know, I think, the capability of music, and they squash it, they censor it, they get it.
Cool.
They take away people's voices, and that's all people really have is their voice and their ability to move.
To let people know how they could get involved, if there's any projects you're a part of, or anything you know about, any websites or anything, how people can get politically active or socially active.
Right. Well, let's see. What are the sites that I go to? I mean, of course, there's the indie media centers, independent media centers, and then there's these independent media centers that are all over. There's one in LA, there's one in San Diego, there's one in San Francisco, and it's basically community folks getting together and creating community-based media to give a counter story or counter narrative to what the LA Times or to what the major news media press is giving. So there's always the LA IMCs. There's 50 Years is Enough, that's looking at kind of globalization and the WTO and IMF and the World Bank and how folks can develop kind of a global justice movement. There's globalexchange.org that is also doing kind of the same thing. I know in LA there was something that I was a part of that holds a really close space in my heart, which was the South Central Farm. And you can go to southcentralfarm.org or southcentralfarmers.com, and that was a 14.5 community garden, which the community had 250 to 300 plots, and community members own these plots, and they went and they worked they worked Mother Earth to create food to sustain them, and the food that they didn't use they would sell at farmers markets. So people were coming from all over LA to come to the South Central Farm and buy fresh produce that was really what's the key word right now for produce? It's organic.
Yeah.
Right? And who knows how organic it really is, and when you go to organic places it's super expensive, and you go to the South Central Farm and you can get truly organic foods for really, really, really cheap. And they were like planting traditional medicines, and South Central Farm was something that was amazing and beautiful. Yeah, it's an amazing story. I was part of the South Central, somewhat, of the struggle to save the South Central Farm, but we lost it a few years ago. Yeah, it's about kind of creating movements and linking people and linking struggles and getting folks to know what's happening, and more important than knowledge is action and how people connect and move and participate, right? People are afraid to go to a rally or a protest because they're like, I don't know enough about that issue. It's like, you know what, you don't need to know about the issue. If you feel like it's important, come down and you can learn, you talk to folks, you dialogue, and by participating you're learning, right? And by learning and participating you're building a larger movement. So it's just, come on down, participate, go to the next strike or picket or rally or talk by someone, or just move, right?